So welcome everybody. My name is Dennis Rietvink. I'm one of the founders of Savision. Together with Cameron Fuller, we have some interesting content. So Cameron wrote a white paper about all the changes that are going on in the System Center ecosystem. So after Ignite, at Ignite, the Operation Management Suite was announced. Cameron is going to enlighten us about some of the content of that white paper, which was describing how everything fits together. And we will also discuss some of the comments he got after the white paper was released, and also some of the changes that have been going on after the release of the white paper. So without further delay, I would like to hand the mic over to Cameron. And Cameron, welcome.
Well, Dennis, thank you very much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. For those who don't know, Dennis and I go way back to the early days of when Savision was founded. And it's actually really cool for us to get a chance to be able to co-present on something. I think we talked about on the first webinar that was our first time co-presenting on anything. And now this is our second time co-presenting on the same topic. So I hope to cover some really good stuff today. So what we're looking at, by the way, is a lot of different technologies. We're going to go through some of the highlights of the white paper. So if you haven't read the white paper, you're definitely going to want a chance to download that, try it out, check it out. It's free, so it's definitely worth taking a look into. And in addition to that, we're going to look at, as Dennis said, a couple of other things, some other good lessons that were learned as part of this, some good feedback that I've gotten since it was published. And we're going to go into a couple of different demos. For those who haven't seen it yet, we're going to take a look at OMS and showcase what OMS looks like, types of stuff you can utilize it for. We're also going to show a demo that we did only once before with the first version of this webinar, where we're going to show you how you can actually automate distributed applications all the way through automatic discovery, through populating them into dashboarding products. So we've got that all set up, and I'm looking forward to showcasing what that'll look like again today. As I mentioned, as we're going through this, if this is something you feel like, hey, my organization could use help with this, another perspective, an additional pair of hands to do this, myself and my team have been working very heavily with Operations Manager and with OMS and with dashboarding products like Savision for quite a while now. So if this is something you feel like, we could help you with any of this or any assistance in other areas of System Center, feel free, send me a direct message to my @CFullerMVP Twitter account, and I'd be glad to get you introduced to the right people. So with no further ado, let me go ahead and get us moving forward. So here's our agenda today. As I mentioned, we're going to hit some of the highlights first and what was in the white paper. We're going to talk about what has happened since the release of it. Then we're going to look into business service management and how business service management actually applies in the world of the cloud. Because business service management is still relevant, regardless of where the application is going to be running at. It's something we need to take a gander into and to better understand. So let's first get into the highlights of the white paper. So the first thing, and to be transparent in terms of how I wrote this white paper from the beginning with all of my own personal biases hopefully set off to the side. My goal was to research it, to really look at this topic and to figure out what's out there, what's happening, where do we see direction, what indications are we getting from Microsoft. So the first thing I did was I went back in Operations Manager history and I started looking through each year since the original releases of Ops Manager and since the MOM days, since MOM 2000, MOM 2005 and all of that, as we went into Ops Manager 2007 and 2012, and looking at what patterns we could see there. And there was one significant pattern of relevance. The first was that there are periods of relative quiet when it comes to releases within this product line at least. So what we would tend to find is a year before something big happens within Ops Manager, you would have a year of nothing major happening. And we've seen that pattern, and it occurs throughout the history of Ops Manager. And this makes a lot of sense because in essence, what we're seeing is those time frames where things are very quiet within Microsoft indicate that they're working on something big that's coming. And I'm drawing from this the quote that enhancements indicate investment. So we can tell from history on this, as things have been at quiet or at a lull, we've seen big investments that have shown up very quickly thereafter. So the first noticeable thing was the fact that 2014 was a year with no major releases for Ops Manager. So that period of a lull that I had mentioned before. Well, with the release of OMS, Microsoft OMS at Ignite 2015, that brought a major piece of functionality in the monitoring space onto the table. Now, there's pluses and minuses to that if you're looking at this from a historical perspective. The first plus is, hey, cool, we have great new functionality, which is awesome. But you may also be looking at that and going, hey, we have great new functionality, but it's not specifically part of Operations Manager. So does that mean that they're not working with an Ops Manager anymore? And I'll tell you from everything that I've seen here so far, that does not appear to be the situation. OMS is a great product on its own, and we'll talk a lot about OMS in this today, but I don't see it as a replacement for OMS. I see OpsMgr and OMS being a good work together, that they complement each other very nicely. So OMS definitely came to the to the front within Ignite, but then there was also other things that we're beginning to see that are indicating other investments that are going on. The first is they've released Technical Preview 2 for Operations Manager. So the existence of Technical Preview 1 and Tech Preview 2 really indicate that Microsoft is still continuing to invest in Operations Manager as a product, because if they weren't investing in it, we wouldn't see new features and functionality that's coming available, and therefore is going to become part of whenever Ops Manager releases. We're assuming at this point Operations Manager 2016. And something I didn't include in the bullet point list here is that Microsoft also made a different shift a little while back, like with the UR2 release, where they started bundling in functionality into update rollups. So what you gain with this, in essence, like in UR2, they added 11 new widgets, I think it was. So we're seeing new functionality that's becoming available within the product, and it's just through the update rollup process. So it's interesting because usually we would have to wait for a full release or a service pack or a R2 type function to be able to give us new functionality. But now they're building it into the product on a more quick, repeatable basis. So we are seeing investment in those spaces as well. Another one of interest that came out recently was Microsoft announced the purchase of a company called Bluestripe. So for people who are not familiar with Bluestripe, I'm sure they might summarize it better than I would, or they would summarize it better than I can. But I see Bluestripe as an automated distributed application program that allows you to be able to build DAs, distributed applications for your line of business applications that may not be pre-built within Ops Manager. So there's some interesting functionality that we gain there with that acquisition. Now, the question as it stands right now is we don't know what the future looks like for Bluestripe. We know that Microsoft bought them. We've gotten indications from press releases that Microsoft is going to leverage this functionality within OMS, but we don't know if, as an example, they're going to leverage that functionality within Operations Manager. I'm very hopeful that they will. And actually, one of the things that I'm going to demo will involve this product and how we can actually use this potentially end-to-end to be able to monitor our line of business applications. The second big piece from the highlight from the webinar or the white paper was around this concept of cloud first, mobile first. So Microsoft's new direction has been very clear in terms of, there's new strategic direction from Satya. This is something he said that is the direction for where they're going. Well, mobile first we'll talk about second, but we're going to start with cloud first. So if we look at 4 of the different pillars that I see around the system center space, these are automation, management, monitoring, and recoverability. If you look at the Road to the Cloud white paper that I did last year, that's where I presented actually 5 of these different pillars and where I see these different technologies fitting. So 4 of these pillars have existing. If you look at the red pieces that are down below, the red pieces are our on-prem type functionality. Our service manager, our operations manager, and things of these nature. These are all our on-prem products. Now, on the top side of this, as you see, are the blue products. The blue products are the same type of functionality, but being provided as a cloud-based service, in essence. So let's take a simple one. The most direct connection is between like service management automation, which is a component of Orchestrator, and Azure automation. So both of these are PowerShell workflow engines. They do very much the same thing. They function very, very similarly, but one's cloud-based and one's on-prem based. Same thing within Intune and Config Manager. A lot of mobile device management functionality in Intune, Configuration Manager, handling a lot of the on-prem type pieces. So there's some interesting benefits that you gain as you pull these things together. So what I wanted to point out within this slide, in essence, is that we can see even in System Center, this vision that's been brought forth, cloud first, mobile first, it's directly impacting System Center. And we can see this from the results where our investments have been based on the cloud products that are now available. Now, as a second piece of this, of course, mobile first is an important piece of this equation as well. And mobile first has been demonstrated within multiple of these components also. As an example, if we want to stick specifically in the monitoring space, OMS actually has a Windows mobile phone application associated with it. And there are vendors such as Savision that have some front-end mobile type capabilities that are available, and other third-party vendors that have extended that space. But a lot of the movement here seems to be going towards the HTML5 user experience that will run on different platforms, as well as having not only just the HTML5, but also having specific mobile apps to be able to expose that data. So I think we're already beginning to see the impacts of some of the mobile first pieces. We're definitely seeing some of the impacts of the cloud first pieces. Also, for everybody in the audience today, we will have, my goal is to have a Q&A session at the end. I'm hoping that you're going to have gathered up some good questions and things you'd like to know that I didn't cover effectively within this. So feel free to throw those in the chat window if you want, and we will hit those at the end, or feel free to hold them until that point in time. So the next big question that comes to the table is related to OMS and OpsMgr. So we have two products, and these two products, in essence, do what seem like very similar things. So versus, saying negatives on either side of the equation, what I want to do instead is I want to focus on the highlights of each of these different applications and where their strengths are at. So let's start with the mainstream stuff that we already know. So Operations Manager. So Operations Manager is on-prem based, but you can run OpsMgr all in IaaS. So you could, as an example, run it all up in Azure or AWS and run everything in IaaS. You don't have to have it on-prem. You use management packs to add features, which are available for download. The Microsoft catalog provides a significant number of these, as well as there are third-party vendors that provide management packs to add features to OpsMgr, and third-party vendors such as Savision. So those are how we add features into OpsMgr. It has a strong notification engine. This allows you to be able to say if any particular alert occurs, you can choose the what, which is the alert, the how, which is what method you want to deliver it, and the who. The who is who you want to send it to. So you can build this notification engine to say, if this alert occurs on this system, then I want it to notify this person via email, as an example. So there's a strong notification engine in there. It also has the Microsoft Management Pack catalog that I mentioned briefly before. This is a catalog of an existing Microsoft solutions that have management packs that are pre-built to monitor things. So as an example, there's an Exchange Management Pack. In the Exchange Management Pack, you install it, it will discover what systems have Exchange, and it will monitor it for you. Another big strength of OpsMgr is distributed applications and health models. So within a DA and a health model, we can in essence define the health of an object. An object could be a server, as an example. A server's got your KPI metrics like CPU, network, disk, and memory. And we can determine based upon those metrics what is healthy and what's unhealthy for that health model. It's also a very strong partner ecosystem around OpsMgr. A lot of different partners that do a lot of different functionality, from enhancements around notification to dashboarding technologies to you name it. There's a lot within that partner ecosystem. And it's also very simple to be able to create your own management packs and your own dashboards. So say you want to be able to get a specific event ID number from a specific system and generate an alert for it. It's very straightforward to be able to author something like this. To be able to put together your own dashboard, you can drag out and design your own dashboards and put your widgets in place and all that, and that's all built into the product. So those are real strengths of OpsMgr. Now, as we look at OMS, we've got a different set of strengths associated with it. First is this is a cloud-based solution. So there is no on-prem version of OMS. You can't install it locally. There's no such option to be able to do so. They use what are called solutions to be able to add features. So your solutions are sections of functionality, and those sections of functionality can actually integrate within your OpsMgr environment. So I'll show some of what this looks like, but in essence, let's say that you wanted to do alert management. You add alert management in on OMS. It actually, if you're integrated with your Operations Manager environment, it will actually download that management pack in the OpsMgr environment and will begin monitoring and funneling data up into that solution. So there's a connection between these. Where this really shines is data visualization. I'll show it to you here in a demo in a little bit, but this is really where you get a lot of strength out of it, is to be able to easily, intuitively understand what you're looking at. As I mentioned, it does connect into existing OpsMgr environments. You can also do standalone systems. You don't have to have Operations Manager to use OMS. You can do a direct download and install on Windows 32-bit or 64-bit agent, and Unix and Linux is coming, or Linux is coming at least. Other areas that it's very strong at is it is a pre-built solution that really doesn't require any significant configuration or tuning. Pretty much out of the box is what you get, and it works pretty well as it is. One of the areas that we as a group see a lot of potential for this is potential replacement around audit collection services. ACS in MON 2012, even nowadays, it's a very big component. It's a very large local database. It's relatively slow depending upon how much data you're putting into this. With OMS, you can actually gather that same security data, have it directly sent up to the cloud. From the cloud, you can real-time report off of the information that you're getting out of there. And once it's left your environment, you don't have to worry about somebody's manipulating this data. Somebody has access to an event log and they're removing events and things that need to be out there. Well, it's already been taken and it's already been moved up into the cloud. So it's been removed from your environment and moved into a safer area so that it can report off of it. So those are kind of the highlights, OMS versus Operations Manager, but it's kind of hard to understand it until you actually get a chance to be able to visualize it. So with that, let me go ahead and switch gears here for a second. And we're going to go over to a different environment. And let me show you, one second here. This is a little bit of the services dashboard here in the meantime, but I want to start with the OMS pieces. So this is the Microsoft Operations Management Suite, or OMS. So within here, all the data that you're seeing here is available from, again, Operations Manager. We can see I'm getting different solutions that are available in here. I've got the AD assessment and the malware assessment and other pieces that are installed. So it's very easy visualization, as I mentioned before. So within here, I'm going to show you first what the different solutions look like after we go through them. But you can see a lot of the different information, very intuitive user experience. If I take a look at the solutions gallery, within here, I can see multiple different objects that are available, including, it looks like a third-party one that's available right now. So this wired data is a third-party solution that's out here, and there's a lot of other different solutions that are out here. So I've added most of these in here right now. I also wanted to be able to show you how we add different component or different things to monitor. So if I look in the settings here, and I connected sources, this is where I mentioned before we can install Windows 64-bit or 32-bit agents and Unix agents that are Linux agents that are coming. It shows us our different systems that we're connecting to, how recently we've connected to them, and then actually we can connect into Azure Storage and get details out of that as well. So there's a lot of different solutions that are available here. I'll walk you through a couple to show examples of the types of areas where this really shines. So the first is like an Active Directory assessment. Let's say you've already got OpsMgr, you're already monitoring Active Directory. This is a quick way to be able to tell what's going on within your environment from an AD perspective. So I've got some unsupported server roles that are in place on things right now. I've got some DNS servers that are not configured properly. It's easy to be able to visualize these, and I can dig in and I can see the details. In addition to this, let me show you a couple of other good examples. I had mentioned the security pieces. So within security and audit, I can open this up and see what is our state in terms of security and audit. And within here, I have a security posture section, so how many computers we're monitoring, how many we're authenticating off of. It has a notable issues section in here, so I can tell how many failed logons have occurred or any suspicious executables. And as you can see, it's easy to be able to see the history and the track and the trend of what's going on here. So this is showcasing a lot of good information. And then I wanted to show a couple of other quick things in here before we leave our demo behind. But to show you, I mentioned the Active Directory assessment, a quick look at the SQL assessment in here. So for the SQL assessment, I see all of the different pieces that have been brought out here. And again, recommendations, prioritized, what's important, what's not as important. And again, if something's actually good, it will let you know, congratulations, looks great. And as you can tell, this is not my lab environment, but the Catapult demo environment that I'm working off of, because there's nothing in my environment that says congratulations, looks great. So with that, I also wanted to show you can do your own dashboards. So within my dashboards, you can go in and add, and you can configure your own queries, and they will populate here as well. So this shows just a couple of small examples, just a couple of those that have data now, the data that's out here right now. Just to go back to one last piece before we leave our demo here behind on this, I wanted to show that there is some beginnings of a crossover between what would historically have been Configuration Manager and what is now contained within OMS. So as an example, System Update Assessment. So the ability to quickly visualize the different servers that you've got, how many security updates they're missing, how old these updates are, what types they are, how many, the different updates that are missing, whether it's security or updates or service packs or feature packs. So a lot of different data that's in here that historically, again, would have been really only in Config Manager to find that type of information. We also provide a malware piece in here. So the malware piece will allow you to be able to tell what your malware staging is related to that. And you can see my malware assessment here. And you can see you can also highlight these, get into details, and find out which ones are missing any malware or which ones actually have active malware at that point in time. So that's a quick look through OMS. With that, I'm going to leave OMS behind for a bit, and we will forge onward. The next big highlight associated with the white paper was around monitoring and Windows Azure. So first off, you can do monitoring for your systems that are in Azure itself. The screenshot on the right actually shows you what that looks like, where you can see things like CPU and disk read and writes and network in and out, all of that type of stuff where it's pre-built into the website. So you can go in and you can change the time frame that you're looking at and all that type of stuff. The counters that are available will vary dependent upon your object that you're looking at. So the one that you're seeing over here on the right-hand side looks like probably a server type object because we see CPU and disk read and writes and things. You can also get these for not just IaaS like we've got here, but also for websites or other pieces. There is also a new portal that's under development right now. It's in a preview mode, and it changes how we visualize data or monitoring data in OpsMgr. The example here on the right-hand side shows how you can actually go in and choose multiple different objects. This one, as you can see, is probably a website because I'm not going to have HTTP 200 errors on a IIS box, you would on an IIS box. You wouldn't on a server level. You would have those within the actual website. So we've got this new portal capability. We do have the ability to be able to generate alert rules. So an alert rule you can define, if a particular counter goes over a certain threshold, to send you some form of a notification. At first, I was very excited about this because I was thinking all the great things you could do within this, and I'm sure you can with a bunch of work, but it's not a notification engine like what we're used to in OpsMgr. So it's pretty rudimentary by comparison to what we've seen within that, but you can do some level of alerting from Azure itself. Now, if we switch the coin and look at this from the other angle, what about if I'm using Operations Manager, but I want to monitor things that are actually up in Azure? So we absolutely can do that with OpsMgr. So we can monitor your on-prem systems, your cloud-based systems, your hybrid. All of that can be done within OpsMgr. Unix, Linux, Windows systems, all of that type of stuff, that's great. You can also monitor non-IaaS with management packs for Windows, Azure, and AWS. Now, this is an important piece of, how do you look at all of this? And my key point that I want to bring across here is OpsMgr is, from the Microsoft product stack perspective, it is the only option that you have available to give you insight into pretty much everything. It doesn't matter whether it's IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. It doesn't matter whether it's Windows or Linux. It doesn't matter, whether it's running in Azure, potentially even in AWS. There are options available to use your OpsMgr framework to monitor these. So the graphic on the right actually comes from the Road to the Cloud webinar that we did last year, but it shows how you would monitor these different things. These using an OpsMgr agent installed, if it's something where you have control of the operating system, such as in an on-premise situation or in an IaaS, or whether you've got different applications that maybe, so you may have a management pack that monitors AWS or monitors Azure. So those pieces pull it all together in this great big Operations Manager framework so you can see what is available regardless of where it's at. A couple other quick highlights on this. First, Microsoft released something called CPS, Cloud Platform System, and CPS was a large investment working with Dell to be able to provide a private cloud in a box, fully managed Hyper-V environment so that you can build your own private cloud, pretty much put it in place and it'll do what it needs to do. Now, it's using something called WAP, Windows Azure Pack. And Windows Azure Pack right now is dependent upon System Center components. So WAP does utilize multiple components of System Center, including Operations Manager. So when we look at CPS and we look again at, where's Microsoft investing, they put a lot of money into CPS, it looks like from the outside at least, and they're using WAP, which in turn is dependent upon Operations Manager. So there's a hint there in terms of where investments are occurring. Now, they did release at Ignite Azure Stack. So Azure Stack is leveraging Azure versus leveraging System Center as far as we can tell so far. Azure Stack looks like a replacement for WAP, and it doesn't look like Azure Stack has the dependencies on System Center. Now, that said, I'm not sure everything's been released on that yet. I think there will be benefits from integrating with System Center, but we're not really sure. But the indication there, in essence, is that they invested a lot on CPS, which used System Center. They're looking at, Azure Stack that's coming in. So it'll be interesting to watch what CPS does, if CPS continues to work with WAP, or if they convert to Azure Stack, and how that will integrate with OpsMgr. One of the big things that I will put as a takeaway in here is that you also want to look, if you're an Ops Manager person like I am, you want to look at Operations Manager and how you architect it to be able to run it potentially in the cloud. So you want to think about the location of Ops Manager as one of your key design criteria. So the way I used to deploy and design Ops Manager environments is I would assume an on-prem deployment and would use the sizer to be able to estimate sizes and hardware requirements and everything. So all of that was, just assumed and run on-prem. Well, now if you've got a lot of stuff that's already running in Azure, or if you want to be able to, not have to put it in your data center, you do have an option to be able to put it in directly into the cloud. Now, there are factors that you do want to consider in this. There are costs for running your resources on-prem. Obviously, if you're running it virtualized, the cost is going to include things like the additional VMs, how much overhead that's going to have. Do you have to buy additional hosts as a result? If you're looking at running it in the cloud, then you're looking at your costs for your IaaS systems, that type of stuff. And it can also be a hybrid. I did a blog series on what I called the AMGW, the Azure Monitoring Gateway, and that allows you to be able to use a gateway up in Azure to monitor your systems, which could be in Azure or AWS or even on-prem, and then to funnel that information into your Ops Manager environment. So think about that. Don't assume that it's got to run on-prem. There may be situations that it makes sense to actually run it in the cloud or even to run it in a hybrid configuration. There were three main conclusions that I took away from the white paper. First off is, let me flat out state it, Ops Manager is still relevant in the world of the cloud. It's still important. We still need it. There's nothing that has replaced it. But we do have to adapt in terms of what's changing in the market. So the three high things I would recommend in this is, first, learn OMS and start using it together with Ops Manager. Microsoft is focusing a lot of functionality and features into that area, and they're coming up with them quickly. Then find out what you can do within OMS, see if it'll work well for what you need to do in your environment, and start leveraging it and looking at that. Second is, as I mentioned on the previous slide, when you're designing, if you're designing new monitoring solutions, design for both on-prem, hybrid, or cloud-only environments, you want to make sure that you're looking at each of those options to choose what's the best business solution for your company. And then finally, for the folks out there that are Operations Manager vendors, you need to integrate with OMS. I saw one in the screenshot that was there, or the demo for OMS a little bit ago. It looks like one of the first vendors is already online in OMS. I know of other vendors that are looking into how they can integrate into OMS, so I would highly recommend that is an area to take a look into and to start digging into. So with that, I asked a lot of really good subject matter experts for feedback in terms of the white paper, what they liked, what they didn't like. I got some very good, strong, critical feedback related to it, which I wanted to kind of summarize and point out some of the pieces of this here. So the first and the strongest criticism that I received was that flat out, Microsoft can't afford to fail with Azure, so on-prem is not strategic. Okay, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. The way that I look at it is this. Microsoft is banking a lot on Azure, and we all know that Azure is the future and the direction that Microsoft is heading to. But with that said, they need to be able to maintain the solutions and the on-prem functionality that they've had all along. There's an existing client base. There's a lot of people that are leveraging the on-prem type solutions, and it would be really silly for Microsoft to not continue to invest in those areas and not continue to enhance those areas at the detriment of all their on-prem things, their on-prem products. So I think you're going to continue to see investment that's going to occur within on-prem, and it doesn't really matter how strategic that may be, because in some cases it actually may benefit us, the fact that Microsoft is spending so much time focusing on Azure. Now that may absolutely sound anti-logical right now, but let me explain. If Microsoft's development resources are focusing on building things within Azure, which then in turn are funneled into on-prem solutions, then we're still gaining new functionality. It's just coming through a new route. So as an example, if Microsoft is enhancing Azure, and then in turn we get Azure Stack, which gains those enhancements, then we're gaining the enhancements as well within our on-prem environment. That's just one example. We're also seeing situations where new features and functions may very well be a benefit from putting the two of these together. So while I think it's important to say that Azure is absolutely strategic and is absolutely critical to Microsoft, I think on-prem is still also important and still critical to maintaining what they already have. Second big point was made that Microsoft wants people in Azure, but they're going to settle for hybrid as part of the path to the cloud. I'd say that's actually probably a valid criticism and a valid statement. I don't know that that hybrid is the perfect solution, but I think it's a very logical one if you really think about it. Because if you step back and ignore the term hybrid cloud for a minute and really think about what it means. So if we look at that and say, hybrid cloud is really just figuring out what pieces make the most sense to run in my on-prem environment, plus what pieces make the most sense to run in the cloud. Now, to me, that's just logical business right there. That's taking and using the best tool that's available for whatever situation you have. So my pushback on this would say, yeah, that's great. And from our perspective, hybrid can be a great long-term solution because some things are not going to go up into the cloud. But this gives us the ability to be able to pick and choose which things make the most sense to put there and which things make the most sense to keep on-prem. Third big one is that OMS itself. Is OMS, I'll hit the fourth one first. First off, OMS is not Operations Manager in the cloud. So if you came in with that question, is OMS just Ops Manager in the cloud, or is it, can I just use OMS? I would say OMS is a great value add, and if you have no monitoring capabilities, it's something you want to take a look into, but it doesn't really replace Ops Manager, and the bullet point before explains why. So OMS is really good about analyzing. You saw those dashboards that popped up, and I didn't mention it during the demo, but those are all being calculated in real time. So it's looking at whatever data has been sent up, and it is figuring out the health of your environment that moment in time that you're looking at it, the state of your environment. So it's great for giving that analysis of what's occurring, what's available in there. But it is lacking some pieces that we would have for it to be any type of a replacement for Ops Manager. There's no alerting. So you can't go into OMS right now and say, hey, I want to create a subscription for this alert, and there's no notification system like we're used to in Ops Manager. There's no reporting capabilities. There's no authoring capabilities other than the ability to be able to choose those dashboards. So we can't create our own solutions yet. That is it's kind of a small niche group of people that know how to do that so far. It's not very publicly available. And the management pack ecosystem is not where it is within Ops Manager. So you don't have all the third-party solutions. You don't have even all the Microsoft solutions. There are hundreds of management packs out there. So that MP ecosystem is available in Ops Manager, but it's not available in OMS. So I think all of those apply. And keying back to the fact that, as I mentioned, OMS is not Operations Manager in the cloud. But with that, we also need to step back and we need to look at business services. So I may have some key business services that I care about. I may have my own line of business applications and plus things like Active Directory and Exchange and all of that type of stuff that's out there. That's great. There's nothing in OMS that's giving me any insight in terms of what my business services look like. And I believe that is still a core requirement. So with that, what I actually want to do is I want to go ahead and transition this over to Dennis for a little bit and let him take over for a bit.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. That was really insightful information. I saw some questions coming in. As Cameron mentioned in his intro, we will have the Q&A part at the end. So please stick with us for a moment before Cameron takes the time to answer those questions. As Cameron already said, yeah, it is kind of an interesting era that we're in right now. We are seeing more and more data points coming up for the operations team, while the things get easier from an infrastructure perspective with private cloud and public cloud. We still see a lot of organizations struggle how to best look at their infrastructure from a business perspective. And next to that, we see that cloud forces IT departments to think like a service provider. So the traditional infrastructure team and it's changing, right? All the workloads are being made available through self-serve portals to the different application teams or platform teams. And so IT departments become more and more a service provider. Of course, before they already were service providers into the organization, because at the end of the day, they don't deliver technology to an organization, but they deliver a service to the organization. So business service management really helps organizations to effectively manage cloud environments. And if your components run on-prem or if your components run in the cloud, Cameron already explained in his intro how you can monitor them. And if it's infrastructure as a service and you just deploy your OpsMgr agent to that service, there's nothing changed from an on-prem situation. If it's an Azure workload that doesn't have the operating system, so if it's a website or database, you can use the Azure management pack that can be deployed within your OpsMgr environment. So when you want to really mature your kind of IT practice in your organization, you may be rolling out ITIL, you're setting up a CMDB, how can you align the technology, how can you align System Center with all those best practices in running your IT environment? Cameron, if you can take us to the next slide. Thank you. So traditionally, System Center has been around, System Center Operation Manager has been around since 2007. And I would say it's a great component monitor. So with the complete management pack ecosystem, as Cameron explained, you can run everything that Microsoft releases, but also it's extendable outside the Microsoft ecosystem. So you can monitor your Oracle, BlackBerry, secret systems, network systems, and whatnot. But traditionally, OpsMgr is some hard to configure. It mainly services technical personas. And if you look at the service delivery in an organization, there's not only technical personas involved, but we have the help desk, we have an IT management, we have a service delivery manager or service owner. And of course, we have the higher management involved there to deliver services from IT to the organization. Traditionally, I would say that the native SCOM consoles are mainly used by the engineers, so by the infrastructure teams, by the application teams, application engineers. And it still takes them a long time to determine the impact of an alert or the root cause of an alert. Where we have some vendors out there, like for example SquaredUp, those guys make really nice dashboards to make it easier for the technical personas to consume all that information. But at the end of the day, it's still hard to determine the impact. How does this alert impact my business? And is this alert a result of some other alerts that occurred like an hour before or 5 minutes before it? And that's where we, at Savision, and if you can take us to the next slide, Cameron. At Savision, trying to help you. So we give you the solutions that allow you to take System Center from a very good component monitor into a business service management solution. So we allow you to organize the data in System Center and add a service perspective to that and display it for the different personas in your organization. And so we are really bridging the gap between IT and the business. And because a business manager or a service delivery manager, he's probably only interested in the fact of a service or business service can still be used by the end users. And of course, what the SLA is, where he is responsible for, but he might not so much be interested in all the noisy kind of infrastructure alerts that are there on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, if your systems are redundant, those end users and the service delivery managers don't really care about little components that need to be replaced, but that don't affect the delivery of the service at the end of the day. So we offer you service modeling capabilities, all kinds of flexible ways to create dashboards on top of that. And next to that, we deliver CMDB integration. So when you've done your service modeling, we allow you to export those relationships into CMDBs like Service Manager or ServiceNow. And we ship with native mobile applications for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone to get notifications about service outages and give you an overview of the status of your services on the go. Next to that, I think another missing piece from System Center was the automatic discovery of business applications. And Cameron already mentioned in his intro, Bluestripe was another System Center vendor. At least they had their own product that integrated with System Center. And those guys are really known for their application discovery and the deep transaction monitoring. So it's a really, in essence, it's a troubleshooting tool for application owners, application engineers. They do also output some of the discovery information into Operations Manager as a distributed application. So without having to touch anything, it will discover relationships between databases and website servers and other components, and will output that in SCOM as a distributed application. Well, you might know or might not know, but the distributed application out of the box in SCOM is basically a structure, a hierarchy of objects, and it's kind of hard to visualize the different levels of information to the different personas, and that's what we're really strong in. So what Cameron will showcase in the upcoming demo is basically how Bluestripe is able to kind of discover an application and how we can integrate that into Savision, the Savision solution. So with that, I hand it back to Cameron and to give you kind of a kick-ass demo of that integration.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. All right, so let's start with a quick walk through the landscape of what we've got here. So I'm going to start with Bluestripe. So I've got Bluestripe installed on the system right now. And within this, once you've installed it and you've put collectors in place, it will gather up information about the different systems that you're looking for. So as an example, if I open up my particular system here, my OMO2 system, I can see all the different things that are occurring within this, and I can track these down. So what I've done is I've actually picked out the specific ones that I was looking for. So I have an application that I've put together from Microsoft that installed called the Pet Shop application, and it's got a front end and a back end. So I'm using right now Bluestripe to monitor that app and to discover the components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up one second. I should have redone. Hold on up. I forgot to grab the URL for it. I apologize, everybody. So let's shift gears there for just a second and let's see what we can tell from it off of the top. So first we can see that the front end is running on OM2, and I am actually going to have to go into Internet Information Server and find out where I put my application. So 1 second while we do that, and I'll showcase what that looks like. But as you can see below, we're getting average response time. We're seeing the different load that's occurring within this, and then I'll show you where we're browsing to it here. All right, so if we take a look at our different sites, I have a Pet Shop app here. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to go ahead and just browse it locally for now. That's what I had forgotten, the 9999 website associated with this. Okay, so I'm going to browse to this application now. So this is, again, just a locally installed application that I'm doing some testing on. So as you can tell, here's our Pet Shop application. Within this, thank you, Microsoft, I can go in and choose different things that I want. Like, hey, I really want to buy an owl. So I'm going to put that on my wish list. And of course, everyone on the planet should own at least one panda. So we're going to add our panda to our shopping cart. So you can see it's just a regular .NET app that we're transitioning through here. So you can also see that we've seen changes here in the average response time while I've been going through that. And we can see the impacts as I'm actually opening up and working within that application. So within Bluestripe, you go to Tools Administration, and in here, we can decide, first off, the connection between Bluestripe and Operations Manager. So from that connection, we define in here, who do we talk to from a configuration perspective, what accounts do we use, and all of that type of thing. And then more important for today's conversation is we choose what we want to export. So it's found all these different types of applications. I've chosen to export these two here, the Pet Shop front end and the Pet Shop back end. And I'm telling it down here, I want you to automatically update these every 30 minutes. So what it's actually doing behind the scenes is it's integrating directly within OpsMgr through loading a management pack. So we're going to pop this open and take a quick look here. If we open up Blue Stripe Fact Finder, we can actually see the different alert views that are in here. I'm going to in the application view, so I can see my Pet Shop front end that's in here, and that's going to populate and show me the details that's actually gotten pushed into Operations Manager from Blue Stripe. So once this populates, you'll see some interesting things here. So first off, we'd expect the IIS and SQL pieces because that's where they're installed. But in addition, what's interesting here is that it actually picked up on the fact that I'm running synthetic transactions that came from System Center, and it's actually seeing those transactions as part of it. And the reason why it sees that is I'm actually doing a synthetic transaction. We look in my environment here, and we take a look at my web application availability monitoring. We can see that I'm doing a Pet Shop web application transaction. And this is going and opening up this website. So it's actually just going to these two different locations and populating it for me, and it allows me to be able to get data in here. So the Blue Stripe pieces pick that, which is really cool. All right, so that's kind of what we get out of the box with the Blue Stripe integration, and it'll automatically update. It finds new components that are installed, and we'll also see that in terms of distributed applications, there will be a DA that will appear in here that actually comes from Blue Stripe. So we can see our different Pet Shop ones that are in here now. And we can see I've got 4 different ones, and I'll hopefully explain that a little bit better here in a minute. Now, if we move on and we go, let's say, what about the Savision pieces of this? So where does Savision fit into the mix? Well, Savision actually has, if we go to the starting page for it, you can do what's called import distributed application. So if we do an import distributed application, it's going to start us a wizard process. And this wizard process allows us to be able to find any of the different distributed applications that are out here, including those that were created by Blue Stripe. So I can actually see each of these different DAs that are out here, and I could choose which ones that I want. I can check one. I'm just going to show an example here, and then I can in turn set it to do an auto update. So an auto update within this is actually going to update this from a business service management perspective, so the dashboards here are going to change. So I'm going to show you the completed one here. I have a Blue Stripe front end, and if we look on the General tab, we can tell that the Blue Stripe front end was created by, or the Pet Shop front end was created by Blue Stripe Fact Finder, and I can see the update intervals. This is going to update every 30 minutes. That's great. So it shows different pieces that it automatically populated over. So it found these different components that it was looking at, and it found these from an infrastructure perspective. So it put these all together. From an end user perspective, there was nothing in here, but we can actually add our own components if we want. So right now, I've got this filtered down to my synthetic transactions that I built. I've got 2 of them that are in there right now, and I'm going to go ahead and add the other 2 components in now. So this allows me to be able to take what was a dynamically built application and add the pieces that I want to it through the live maps perspective. I'm going to save this off, and that's going to take a little while to populate, so we're going to leave that be. So how this is actually working is the Savision pieces are building their distributed applications, which then in turn we can surface. So I showed the all services dashboard early on this. I've got a few different apps in here, so a couple of sample apps. And what we can see is the Pet Shop front end is in here. It has different components across the board. And if I drill in, I can actually see which components exist in here. So we're going to see the drill in here in just a second. This is going to show me the particular components that are in this business service. And we can see those types of details here. 1 second. Give that a few more seconds to populate here. I may have just, so it's showing the 2 that we had in there originally, and then given time, those other 2 are going to update. So we can see the full dashboard. We can visualize this, but I also want to show what it looks like from the dashboards by Savision product. So this is a free product that Savision provides that will leverage their information. And as you can see here, I'm logged into Dashboards by Savision. If you already have live maps, you can go into and see your business services through the Service Overview section. So if we open up Services Overview here, what this is going to show me is something that looks very much like what you already saw within the Operations Manager console. It's going to show that I need to sign in again. Hold on a minute. So it's going to show our business services, and then from there again, I can visualize these all the way through, open up subcomponents and see what alerts are occurring and things of that nature. So this gives us the HTML5 front-end experience to visualize this information. So again, if we go from start to finish, what we got is using Blue Stripe, we discovered an application. We had that application automatically integrated into Operations Manager and automatically updated. We used Savision's automatic update capabilities to be able to visualize these business services. And now we're seeing it all through an HTML5 user experience. So within here, now I can open up a particular application, and you'll see what the visualization here looks like, where it's going to show me each of the different sections of how this application comes together. It's going to show me the service level information on it, and all in one easy-to-use dashboard structure. So that's start to finish end-to-end visualization for an automatically discovered application. Now, for those who are interested and want to know, hey, more details, how did I do this, and all that type of stuff, I have a blog post that's scheduled for release on Thursday morning that goes through each of the different steps here, including the pet shop application that I used, the configurations in Blue Stripe and in Savision, and all of that, like I said, should be live on this Thursday. So with that, let me switch back to where we are, and we are at a time frame that we still have time for some QA and open discussion. So if it's okay with you, Dennis, would you, if you have visualization on what we've got for questions, you want to see if there's some good questions we should go through?
Yeah, let me quickly have a look here. Q&A. Let's see. The first question is the ACS replacement functionality capable of filtered visualization? And the second question from the same person, from Mark Whitley, is, but can you customize the security and audit visual output as easily as in ACS audit report?
Good question. You can utilize, and within OMS has all of the data, all the event log and information that's been brought up is available. So to be able to visualize that information, you really just need to understand the query that you're looking for. And then from the query, then you can actually put them on that dashboard component that I showed, the custom dashboards. So the answer should be yes, you can quickly visualize and showcase that type of data. Now, that said, this is not a pre-built, like a HIPAA or a PCI or some one of those pre-built reports, but it does give you the ability to be able to quickly query any of the event information that you're pulling back through OMS into your environment. Good question.
Okay. The second question is for me, I guess. How is Savision integrating into OMS? So today we don't have an integration. We are an on-prem solution. We are replacing our complete front end with an HTML5, a brand new HTML5 web console, where Cameron already kind of showed you some of it. It's currently available as dashboards by Savision, but that will be our replacement UI. For the rest, we are awaiting kind of Microsoft's information, of course, to integrate as a partner in OMS. It's definitely something we are looking for. But again, as long as there is no real-time state information available in OMS, it doesn't really make sense today. But it will definitely be something we will be looking closely towards the future. Another question: can you customize the discovery of Blue Stripe probes to allow us to select only what we want while creating DAs? So I think it's probably a question. Did you understand it,
I think so. I mean, in essence, when the example that I showed, I took a very simple one there, and I think their question in essence is, can you choose, pick and choose pieces within what it discovers? And I do believe you can, but I will be the first one to say that I'm still learning the Blue Stripe functionality as it stands right now, so that might be a good one to either throw a quick Twitter message at me or something, and I can see if I can get you a more specific answer to that question. Yeah,
it is definitely a good question. So we have a number of joint customers, so customers that use both LiveMap Unity as Blue Stripe Fact Finder, and we work with those customers to deliver the integration as Cameron showcased. Now we do know that Fact Finder is a great product. The integration with System Center is creating the DA is a little bit has its limits, right? So when there is no network traffic between components, you might lose objects in the DA, and not everybody really likes that as an integration in Operation Manager. And that's why you can also alter kind of the distributed application after it has been discovered by Bluestripe. So that's additional functionality we deliver on top of that auto discovery of Bluestripe, is that you can take that model, extend that model with objects that are part of the business service, as you know.
Good stuff.
Any other questions? So there will definitely be a recording of this webinar made available. You will receive two more questions.
Yes, 2 more questions. One of them is, what are the leading CMDB for large enterprises? How much does Service Manager meet this need?
CMDB, and you may get a little bit from both Dennis and I, that's kind of peripheral to what we deal with, but we can give some insight at least. So Service Manager does provide a CMDB. The big benefit associated with Service Manager is that it's very simple to integrate CMDB with existing data sources. So it grabs data out of OpsMgr and it grabs data out of Configuration Manager and pulls it into that CMDB and automatically maintains, that type of data. So it does a good job with the customers that we work with. We haven't seen real issues with the types of data and the types of benefits associated with the CMDB. I'm probably not in a position to give you a really good insight in terms of competitive landscape when it comes to CMDB. I'll throw that to Dennis just in case he's got something to add to it. So.
Now, the only thing I can speak for, Cameron, is that we have an integration with Service Manager, but we did notice that a lot of our customers were using, besides Operation Manager, we're using, for example, ServiceNow for incident management and their CMDB functionality. So that's where we integrate with to take that service model, synchronize relationships, and keep everything up to date automatically. But that's all I can kind of tell from a Savision perspective.
Okay. And again, on that one, if that's something that if you'd like additional detail on that, feel free, send me a direct message via Twitter on that, and I'll talk to one of my Service Manager guys and see if we can get you better or strong, additional information on that answer.
Okay, and then the last question is COM or OMS able to provide SNMP monitoring of network and other, for example, storage, load balancers, etc. devices?
Take that one. So Operations Manager can do SNMP monitoring. With the 2012 release, they added a lot of pre-built devices. There's somewhere like 500 to 900 or 900 different network devices that it supported out of the box. Like 500 of those were Cisco. So it does support SNMP capability, and you can actually add things that are just SNMP monitored outside of what's pre-built within Microsoft also. So yeah, Ops Manager would be your choice there for that particular one.
And the last, well, actually we have 2 more. One, is there anything coming down the line for on-prem versions of OMS for black box sites? Excellent question.
I will tell you that the community, including your MVPs out there in the community, are continuing to push with that request as well. As a matter of fact, the first thing I asked as soon as we got the demo of OMS is when we could have it on-prem. So you are absolutely on a page of something that we're advocating as well, but I have no information I can provide you in terms of if that's ever going to be reality or if it's just something we're all asking for.
And the last question is the Bluestripe software still available for download post Microsoft acquisition?
It is not currently available for download. They can provide it to existing customers. And my pushback on that would be that if this is something that you want to see in Ops Manager, I highly recommend find a good way to be able to start pushing on this particular piece and asking it to become available. Put it up on Connect or pick a way to be able to start pushing and asking Microsoft. I'm definitely pushing as well on the exact same thing. So I would say that's a good place to start. All right, and I think with that, we are past our time for today. So if anybody has additional questions, feel free, like I said, and also, or if we can assist you at Catapult with any of these things, feel free to direct message me at CFullerMVP, and I really appreciate. Thanks to everybody who attended, and thank you to Savision for putting this together.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron, and thanks everybody for attending this webinar on behalf of Savision, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.